Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So it's 2 o'clock UK time sharp. We already have the main part of the attendees to the webinar. Over the next few minutes, the last registered person will join us. My name is Julien Sellier. I'm the managing director here at CompoSIDE, and joining me today is our application engineer, Sam Ashton.
Hi, everyone.
So today we'll talk about CompoSIDE's desktop client, and we'll run over some quite interesting web ecosystem topics to explain you how it came, why there is a desktop client today. And Sam, in the latter part of the webinar, will make a short demonstration as to how to install it nicely and how it can be used together with CompoSIDE. During today's webinar, so as usual, we'll do a short introduction to CompoSIDE. We'll go through this relatively quickly, given that most of you around here have already had a try our existing clients. We'll go through a summary of the desktop application, and that will give us a bit of insight as to how CompoSIDE came to life as a web-based software, engineering software. It will include a live demonstration outlining the installation and how you can work effectively and save money for your business between the desktop and using the desktop and the web-based CompoSIDE modules. Finally, we'll have a question and answer, short question and answer session, and conclude this webinar. I think we'll be together for the next half an hour to maximum 45 minutes, depending on how many questions and how we go. So, introduction to CompoSIDE. CompoSIDE was launched in January 2015, so we had our 2 years birthday as a business recently. CompoSIDE stands for Composite Software Integrated Design Environment and aim to help composite technologies to get more out of their software and more that is directly in relation with their day-to-day business. To date, we had over 250 account registrations. Quite a few have turned into actual customers. Working with composites, it embeds 3 main categories. So working with materials, where the engineers have a large palette, and CompoSIDE is quite geared up to manage all those aspects. It's been dealt with in 2 webinars dedicated to our CMDB add-on and how much good material data helps you to start and develop your composite project, saving money while the development. It's around engineering, and that's where we'll focus our discussion today on the tools, and the CompoSIDE desktop client is one of the tools that can be used to develop your application. And finally, it's around the process. Both those 3 elements, material, engineering, process, are required to get a good control over your composite development. CompoSIDE environment basically embed project management, managing of the material and laminates, 2D and 3D interfaces, and this is where we will focus our discussions today. You will see in the next slides when I give you a bit of background as to how we developed CompoSIDE a few years back. Third-party integration, so it's importing, exporting data and models from and to CompoSIDE. And finally, a link with bill of material in relation with sourcing and manufacturing. So, CompoSIDE desktop of application. We'll start with a little bit of history. For those who are amongst you who are old enough to know about the web, the early leaders in web browsers were Netscape. Back in 1995, Netscape had about 90% of the web browser market. In the later years, it got overtaken by Internet Explorer, which then became the most prevalent one. Then Internet Explorer was overtaken by Google Chrome. Back in 1995, Netscape developed a technology called the Netscape Plugin Application Programming Interface, and we'll call them the NPAPI plugins, which basically is used to run the Java environment and the Unity environment. As those of you who already manipulated CompoSIDE have seen, Unity is a plugin that we use for the management of our 2D and 3D geometry management through the two modules section space and FE space. The web ecosystem today is moving away from those plugins. It's kind of, you can understand it, it's technology that is 22 years old, and by the end of 2017, most web browsers will radically stop supporting the NPAPI plugins. Browser-based 2D and 3D technologies are changing now, and it's been brought in, those technologies are being brought in directly into the browser, therefore removing the need to use plugins, which makes it a lot better from a user experience point of view. But it's basically writing off the NPAPI plugin technology, and so it's browser integrated 2D and 3D technologies are done in a different way. However, it's not all mature enough to be a straight swap, and the replacing technology is called WebGL, which today has not given, let's say, all the guarantees that it was working as well as the plugins. Today, the web plugin starts automatically in the background of CompoSIDE when you open section space and FE space via a quick installation. So here you see a screenshot of a model built in FE space. Okay. Last few words about the NPAPI web technologies and a brief review of the various browsers. Firefox, Mozilla, which used to be the browser of choice, still is. They started decommissioning earlier this year in 2017, so a few of you might have had the issues, although the CompoSIDE platform proposes as well the option to work from the desktop client. There is a workaround existing until the end, but it's going to be fully decommissioned. Google Chrome stopped supporting about 2 years ago. In September 2015 during their release number 45. In Microsoft Edge, the NPAPI plugins are not supported, so it's fully driven by the WebGL. Safari and Internet Explorer still supported, so today it works fine. And finally, Unity 3D. Unity has stopped as well supporting the development of web plugins, and they were forced by the browser technology to refocus all their efforts towards the WebGL technology. It's a lot of IT, a lot of technologies that are necessary to run CompoSIDE, but in principle shouldn't really affect the user. CompoSIDE is using, since its origin, a 2D, 3D graphical editor that I mentioned a couple of times already, called Unity, which comes from the gaming industry. It's quite, I think, today we are the only engineering company to use such gaming technology forward, which could explain some of our, let's say, user-friendly interface for section space and FE space. Unity, the advantage was that it provides essential intuitive ways to deploy solutions on various platforms, on desktop apps, which is the topic of our discussion today, as web plugins, as mobile apps. So we've always seen as a, let's say, future technology that CompoSIDE has got the ability to be declined on a number of supports, depending on where our product development, where our software is going. Okay. And we've chose to address the decommissioning of the MPAPI plugins, the desktop application as a 2D, 3D editor, because it mitigates the situation in the current, let's say, situation, and the fact that the WebGL, the replacing technology, is not quite mature enough to really overtake from one to another. So today, basically, what does that mean for you as a user? It means that you can have 2D and 3D access through two different options, which deliver you the same functionalities. One is the option you know well with a web browser, where you've got access through the plugin to FE space and section space. The second way to work together with CompoSIDE is to deal with a number of modules on the web browser and to manage section space and FE space models within the desktop application editor. So you can see visually represented how is option 1 and option 2. When it comes to the desktop distribution and installation, there is a launcher for the Windows desktop, which ensures you use the correct version according to your operating system, which you can see. There's a screenshot here on the bottom left of your screen where download desktop client. Okay, then it will simply create an icon on your desktop, as you can see on the bottom right. Okay, just a quick overview before Sam gets into a bit of a demonstration. One of the strengths of the desktop editor is that it's independent of the web plugin, okay? But we still keep a web browser solution, okay? It improves the performance and user experience for larger model. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is about there's a RAM utilization limit when working with browsers, which is 1 gig of RAM. And working with a desktop editor, you can access more resources from your platform. Okay, so it's more powerful. You're not limited by the browser functionalities, and it's also browser independent. Okay, you can work together with the desktop client with whatever browser you want for the other modules of CompoSIDE. First weakness is that you have a separate installation that is required. It may drive you to speak to your IT, which is something that at CompoSIDE we've been always very mindful to try to help our users by talking less to their internal IT department. It's never a time that you enjoy filling forms and asking for permissions. Second, that there is a dual environment browser desktop, which might be seen by some users as a positive, as a strength, because it's useful to have access to 2 windows. So this one we could debate whether it's a weakness or not. And finally, the desktop editor is only for the Unity-based module, so it's not for all the modules. This is something that we are reflecting upon, whether we should have more modules, and maybe this is something where you can give us a bit of customer feedback at the end of the session. So 2 solutions are basically for the longer term of the 2D, 3D management within CompoSIDE. 2 solutions are being looked at in parallel. We haven't quite made our mind as to where we are going to go. However, we wanted to present it to you so you get visibility as to where the product is going. First solution is to simply convert from Unity to WebGL once everything has been thoroughly tested. So we've got an R&D program going in that direction with our developers. The second solution is to be able to offer more to our customers by having a service approach for dedicated 2D, 3D management. So in other words, it's about using third-party solutions to manage the 2D, 3D, and maybe some other elements that are not seen as CompoSIDE core business. Our core business is really to help our clients with their composite data management and helping them to get to a decision point with their composite data faster, therefore saving money to their business. Okay. Now I'll hand over to Sam, so he goes through a short demonstration of the desktop client.
Okay, thank you, Julian. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration of the desktop client. So what I'll do first is introduce it, how you install it, and where you can find it. And then I'll do a quick workflow example of how to use it using a example project. So if I come out of this, so where we can find the installation for the desktop client is either within section space or FE space itself. So if we go into section space in CompoSIDE, we can see we've got our download desktop client in here. So to download this, all we need to do is download the file and then run the installation. I'll just bring this over. It doesn't take too long to install, and then once we've installed that, we can then we have a shortcut in our desktop which allows us to open up the CompoSIDE desktop client. So I'll show you that. Okay, so now we've got the desktop client installed onto our computer. If I now open this up, it launches the client. And similar to the web browser, we now log in using our normal credentials. And we can see that it's reasonably similar to what you would expect from the browser. So have a quick look around. At the top we've got our projects. Here we can select which project we want to work on. And similar to the browser, we've got our modules down the side and in the environment here. So here we've got our section space and FE space modules. So we have a quick look at the modules themselves. So we've got section space. Here we can see all our sections within our project, and we can also make a new section down here. And then in FE space, again, we've got our product tree here where we can see our models, and again, create a new model down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is run through a quick example of how we would switch between the browser and the desktop client. So if I bring back CompoSIDE up in the browser, so typically we would work obviously from left to right with our modules. I won't go into all the details of creating this product, but at the end we'll show you a link to some other videos where we've gone into more detail on how to set up your model. I'll quickly run through what we're going to do. So we start with our material database, and here what we'll do is select our materials and create a material selection so we can store and look at all our materials. So I've already done this. I've made a quick material selection for our product. The product we're going to make is a shell model which has supporting beams made in section space. So our materials that I've chosen, I've got a quadriaxial carbon epoxy vacuum infusion, and I've also got a glass here as well that we'll use to demonstrate swapping the materials. So now we've got our materials set up, we can go into laminar space, the next module. Here we can define our laminates, and then we can use those in the other modules. So it's a simple laminate I've created. It's just 13 plies of the carbon. And then once we've saved this, we get all our engineering constants and allowables for the product for our laminate, as usual. Okay, so that's all pretty typical workflow. What we're going to do now, instead of going into the section space and FE space within the browser, we're going to do this in the desktop client. So if I bring up the desktop client, within the same project, I can open up a section that I've made for the supporting beams. So this is a relatively simple section. And so what I've done is drew a section and I've applied the material that we made in the laminar space beforehand into the section. What this looks like is within the beam, we can then apply the laminate family that we created in laminar space beforehand. Now we've defined our section with the laminate we've created, we can save this and then move on to FE space. So if I close that, and now we move on to FE space within the desktop client, we can open up our 3D model. Okay, so this is the shell model. This was based off 3 surfaces that have been imported using a step file. These 3 surfaces, then we've applied laminate to the surfaces, and we've also applied beams to the lines for reinforcement. So if I just activate that, you can see here the model with the beams applied. If we have a quick look at that, we can open up the stack that's been used for the shell, and here again we've applied the laminate that we created in laminate space.
In the browser? In
the browser, yes.
Okay, so both instances communicate together?
Exactly, and I'll show you how that works later on as well. And then also with the beam, we've used the beam that we created in section space and in the desktop client. Okay, so this is all pretty similar to what we do in the browser. The only slight difference is in here we don't have the product tree, so you've got more space to work and you can see your model, but everything else is pretty much the same as the browser. Okay, so what I'll do now is if I just show the calculation, or I'll show the load case first, sorry. The loads we're applying, we've got a mix of boundary conditions that we've set up, and we've also got a surface load on the shell. I've then created a load case which combines the boundary conditions and the pressure. If we now run that calculation, we can see the task down here, similar to what you would see in the browser. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'll just mesh that first. Okay. And then we recalculate. Okay, so that's been now sent for calculation, and you see it's taken about 10 seconds before, so it should be about the same this time. Okay, so now our results have been sent back to us. If we have a quick look, what we're seeing now is the displacement of the shell, and similar to the browser, we can also look at the shell strains. We can also look at the strains for each layer, and we can also get the reserve factors of the shell to see if our composite is failing or not. Okay, so what I'll do now is show you how then you can now switch back to the desktop client to continue, switch back to the browser to continue with your workflow. So if I bring back the browser, so now we've gone through the CMDB and the laminate space in the browser, we've used section space and FE space in the desktop client, and now we can come back to the browser and use our other modules. So for instance, if we want to now generate a bill of materials, we can go in here, we can update our bill of materials, and the module that we've created in the desktop client has now updated our bill of materials in here. So we get all our weights and areas of our components. So what I'll just show you some other tips now and things that we can do with it between the desktop and the browser. So as you can see that the browser and the desktop client is 2 separate windows. This means that if you are using 2 screens, you can it's a faster way to switch between the modules in CompoSIDE. And I'll show you what that also looks like if we go back into FE space. What we can see is that if we want to change our laminate, as before, if you wanted to change your laminate and go back into laminate space, you can do that through a link. And same here, when we're in desktop client, we can then click to bring us back to laminate space, which sends us a link to the browser itself. And so again, if you wanted to change your laminate, we'll do that here. We'll quickly edit this laminate that we've made. We'll change it to the glass material that we chose earlier. We've updated that material and we'll save and close. So once this is saved in the browser, if we go back to the desktop client, we can see that we've updated the laminate and that our laminate stack is updated for the model. So you can see how quick it is interchanging between the browser and the desktop client. If I rerun that model now, mesh and calculate, let's wait for it to send. Okay. Now that's calculating. If I go back into our web browser, we can open up FE space in the same project, open up the panel.
So now you're using the plugin?
Yes. So now I'm back in browser using the plugin. But what we can see is that our task that we calculated in the desktop browser is now, you can see it also in the desktop client, we can now see it in the browser. So that's how fast the results are sent between the browser and the desktop client. So that means that there's no way you can have outdated results and everything's linked together and those links are maintained. Okay, so that was basically the demonstration. Let's close this.
Yeah, what is interesting is that we've developed the desktop client now over a year ago, and it's been in beta testing and been gradually introduced, and we had very positive feedback from our users, essentially on benefiting from the dual window management and a bit of separation and slight increase in performance. So for what we see as a conclusion of this brief demonstration is the workflow for the dual windows. The fact that the user, up until the plugins are fully decommissioned, you always have the choice to go into your browser and to go into through the desktop client. But we can see that this choice is going to be restricted not by our fault, but by where the technology of the web ecosystem is going on. The data is shared between the browser and the desktop, that the same data is just accessed in a slightly different way. Okay. In conclusion, tangible benefits that we see are improved efficiency and accessible and scalable in an easier way. Saves quite a bit of time by having a slightly faster responsive desktop client compared to the web browser, where the cache is filled up very quickly. If you imagine having a long session on CompoSIDE, improvement on quality and deliverables, and obviously reduced project costs. Okay. Here's a summary of our plans for those of you who are not yet clients, and there's always the option to start with a free trial for a month, where our team will discuss with you your objectives and then try to tailor a plan that fits to your usage. Okay. Plenty of support and training resources available, tutorials, chat support, and obviously our team, Sam and his colleagues, are here to help you to make the most out of CompoSIDE, to make it fit within your business. So don't hesitate to be in touch. When you have a problem where you feel CompoSIDE can help, it most likely can. And then it's about helping you to get the workflows, introducing it with your current infrastructure, and so on. Okay. Now is a bit of a time for questions, and so in the GoToWebinar interface there is an area for questions. If any of you have got any question, please type it there. Maybe we give you a few seconds to think about it, and we'll pick a couple of them and run through. Okay, so we have a first question, is how do I check that my browser has got the plugin or not? We are quite well aware about the capability of the browser, so it goes through a short discussion with our technical team. If you communicate with them your browser of choice, then we will give you the limitations, whether there is a workaround. Some exist, so you can, as Sam has shown, you were using Mozilla?
Yeah.
Okay, there is a workaround to use the plugins within Mozilla, and our team of specialists can help you to go around this. Okay. Any other question from the attendees? How long has the desktop client been around? I mentioned it. We basically started this program pretty much when we launched CompoSIDE. We always try to keep one step ahead of the technology and to understand where we are. So we launched that program back in 2015, knowing that this was already a hot topic, knowing that if this would happen, develop the desktop client to replicate what FE Space, section space can do within the plugin. And it's been in beta testing. Testing started about a year ago at a few selected customers who helped us to participate into this. And finally, it's been released. And you may have noticed in our newsletters that we were communicating more and more about this topic, because obviously there is an impact on the users. We believe we've mitigated this risk quite well, in the fact that we have a solution, so we don't disrupt this, and we had quite positive feedbacks essentially about the ability to have the dual window use from our beta testing clients. Okay, I think on this note we will conclude today's webinar. There are a few more questions that we will answer offline. We are mindful about time. Thank you very much for attending, and feel free to contact us if you wish to discuss further any topics.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.